Welcome to the special show. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and this is a joint endeavor by NewsX and Businessworld. Well, the stimulus package, which was worth rupees 20 lakh crores, has been hailed by some, and some people say that it has failed as well. But what the main challenge for the government is going to be something that we're going to discuss today. Will the state have to do more in the months to come? Because frankly, the COVID numbers are only getting higher by the day, and the desire for accountability in the economic woes of the country is only getting bigger and louder by the day. So to this, some changes in the future. What is the government going to do? We have some business stalwarts on the show tonight, and let me start by welcoming them one by one. Mr. Pankaj Munjal, Managing Director of Hero Motors, joins us on the special panel. Mr. Munjal, a pleasure to have you on this platform. Mr. C.K. Kumaravelu, co-founder of Naturals, India's #1 hair and beauty salon, is also with us. He's fondly known as CKK, and he would not mind if I address him as CKK. Mr. Raj Nayak, who is of course part of the House of Cheer, is also responsible for running the channel Colors, if I'm not mistaken, in the past. Dr. Blossom Kocher, a chairperson of Blossom Kocher Group, also joins us on the broadcast. Ma'am, a very warm welcome to you. Mr. Tejpreet Chopra, founder and CEO of Bharat Light and Power Group, also known as BLP, is a part of this esteemed panel. Mr. Chopra, pleasure to have you here. Ms. Naiya Sagi, founder of Baby Chakra, also joins us. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Anurag Batra, Editor-in-Chief of Businessworld. Mr. Munjal, let me start by asking you. Well, the global securities research firm by the name of Sanford Bernstein has termed this rupees 20 lakh crore economic revival package by the Modi government as something of a lost opportunity. It says that it doesn't echo the concern which is prevalent in the market and which is prevalent in the nation. Do you concur, sir? If not, if yes, what are your subjective point of view on the stimulus package and the state of the economy?
I would like to share that these big permanent scars that we have to live with, we are not going to forget this. It's a very deep one. It's a long lockdown, longer the lockdown, longer the time to get up and revive back. So it's really a tough journey going ahead. Now the 20 lakh crore that we talk about, it's a very little dole. The big thing is that they are giving you liquidity to tide over the crisis, and you have to take it in form of debt. And in small medium enterprise, there's some equity options and equity ways that they're looking at to fund the promoter to put equity into the company. Now, many big economies, and in the past what we see, they were doing well, but they fell off the cliff when the middle class could not cope up. Now in this approach, what I think they are doing right is the bailout of this is on the class of the country. Now if this 100 million or whatever, 120 million people employed in the small medium enterprise, they are the backbone of auto divisions, hospitality, bicycle, international business. We are dependent on the so-called migrant labor, small medium enterprise, which are hurt the most. So water must trickle down to them, the economic benefit must trickle down to them. That is the core of this business looking like. So to me, this should be executed well. I was in touch with other leading ICICI, HDFC, Kotak banks, small medium enterprise people yesterday. Now what I heard from them, which I really didn't understand, was that the government is going to back it. They're going to guarantee it. The risk is somewhat being shared. I don't know how it works, but God forbid, the small medium enterprise loans, these are not grants, they are loans. They have to be paid back in full. If there's a default on them, then are we heading for a bigger one, a bigger crisis? So how well this money is executed is the key. And money, banks do as well as the economy. How well will the demand be there to make what we make and sell what we make? How will will the whole loop be complete? That is the question to be seen. On our sector, personally, I mean, I'm have a big smile on my face. We are operating at already 70% of our capacities. Our English and our German and our American ventures are moving very well. They have had soaring growth because the big thing that the developed nations, which are more homogeneous, they are smaller populations, they can control. The post lockdown phase is a very crucial one. God forbid, बहुत डर लगता है, God forbid, all the social distancing that we have done, and tomorrow we go to a metro station and a bus station and a office which is not well organized and a factory. God forbid if we get a second wave of corona, I think we are in very deep trouble. So the same safe distancing cycle again is a very, very useful tool which the world over they are following it. Bicycle and the e-cycle is a big thing. So safe distancing, faces to be covered, hygiene from hands and whatever pace we do. This thing is very, very critical in the coming few months.
So Munjal, I want to add to Vineet's question. For many years, at least 5 years, we've been trying to convert our nation into a nation that uses bicycles for mobility. Do you think COVID will be a blessing in disguise for that? Because
yes,
health benefit, it increases immunity,
yes,
good for environment. So one. Second is when you talk to your fellow industrialists, your clan of industrialists, what is the sentiment you get on loan? Do they echo your sentiment or there is more layers to what you say?
First of all, the first question is that yeah, there is a change. I mean, I live in Greater Kailash, and I have a e-bike. When there was a time that we could go out, I've never seen so many people cycle, and people with track suits and track pants and shorts and running around. The natural oozing out, like something oozes out. Everybody wants it, but the cars and clogging of the roads did not allow. So there is a change. The smart cities have cycling tracks coming up. There are parks coming up. All those things, they're doing a good job. The exclusive roads, Delhi, Mr. Amit Shah launched exclusive road, some 10-15 kilometers elevated road. So these things are happening. They're taking its sweet time. It could be done better. But honestly, from Hero point of view, our export-led growth is our way forward. I believe India economic bounce back would take time. It's too deep. It's too heterogeneous. Villages mein pata nahi. Matlab, there's no infrastructure that what is there. It needs to be tried, tested, treated, whatever, tracked, treated, tested. All that story yet has to be checked there. On the bigger ecosystem, I mean, we are hurt very badly in the auto sector. We have ventures, which make disc drums, knuckles for Maruti and BMW. We make chassis and all. We are down to 10% of our capacity utilization. Those companies are going to bleed because our business is directly linked to how well Suzuki, BMW, Toyota, Nissan, they will do. So that part of the business, I think, is going to be a very slow credit paths. I believe the Germans and the Japanese have told the Indian counterparts, go slow, don't rush, don't make a mistake, and let it build up step by step. So there will be auto will be a slow sector.
CKK, you are a saloon chain, you're a retailer. People need to walk into your saloons to be able to get the service that you provide. Over the last 2 months, these saloons were closed. So the workers suffered. Of course, as an entrepreneur, you suffered. But are you happy with the package that the government has done? Has the government really been able to come up to the aspirations and the expectations that entrepreneurs have? Give us your opening comments.
No, definitely the business has suddenly stopped for us, and ours is a large franchise network where more than 10,000 people, most of them are in the bottom end of the pyramid, and that's how our business is structured. And overnight it has come to that. First month we were able to pay them the salary. Second month we were only able to pay them half the salary. And the third month almost it has become to nil. And that's a very, very big problem. So we have appealed to the government that they have to do something about it. But luckily they have now allowed to start. That itself is a blessing in disguise for us. And that's what I will say. And I would want to quote an analogy. What has happened is on the government stimulus, the Mahavishnu is depicted in two forms. One, he will be flying in the Garuda. Another, he will be sleeping in the snake. The first one is called a 30,000 feet view. and the second one is called a ground reality. A leader has to seamlessly move from ground reality to a 30,000 feet view and vice versa. Especially in a crisis situation, the leader should be sleeping in the snake and should be in the ground. Unfortunately, I think the government and the policymakers are still having a 30,000 feet view, and they are talking a lot of long terms, and none of it is relevant in the short term. Today we are hungry, we want to restart the business, and we have to pay the salary, we have to pay the rental, and the job loss is phenomenal. The migrant workers are going. None of that has been addressed. They have been told us to go to the bank and ask for more loans. We go to the bank and we are actually afraid to go and ask for more loan because we don't know what is going to be the demand and how the industry is going to respond. Frankly, we feel it is not, if we survive this year, that will be a great achievement. So we are in no mood to take most of the, not only me, I don't represent me alone, most of the MSMEs are not in a mood to take the loan because the shock has been too high. And whoever is ready to go and take the loan, they go to the bank and they approach the bank manager. The bank manager says, no, I am not going to lend you. But he is not telling you in so many words. But the reality is that even though I have a spotless track record with no problem, he is only telling wait for some more months and some more instructive. And then government can say anything, but our bank board is different. We decide in a completely different manner, and that's how we are looking at it. So don't ask us what to do and when it will come. It may come, it may not come, and that's the reality which we have to face. I think within this, it's a really tough situation. I think the much more is expected from the government, especially on a ground level and immediate basis. So either in terms of a salary waiver or in terms of some funds to restart, some soft loans, or even loan is given means where is the demand? The question to ask is not the funding the business. The question to ask is where is the demand? I think that's the
right. And
thank you, CKK. We'll come back to this speaker, Mr. You last you had a 3-decade career. Now you are seeing that the government is being responsive. Government has tried to address the SME sector, the agriculture sector, the financial services sector. It has tried to work on compliance. Do you think the government has done enough? If yes, why? And if you think government needs to do more, what else could the government do? And specifically, what can the government do about your sector, media and entertainment? You'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Nayak.
Okay, I think both Pankaj and CKK have articulated very well. But I would like to say, I think the intent is there, but execution-wise, I don't think it's happening the way it should have happened. You know, you make this announcement of 20 crore package, makes big headlines, and then it takes you the next 48 hours to see actually what exactly the package is about. One of the things which CKK said is so true, especially in the way of making money accessible to you by debt, not by equity, or not as a stimulus, which actually is happening in most other countries. And I'll give you an example. In Canada, for example, all MSMEs have been given up to $40,000 straight away given, and if they return it in 2 years at a very interest-free, this is 3 years. If they return it in 2 years, then 1 year's installments are written off. Okay. In the UK, and I was discussing with somebody, if you lay off your employees, the government pays them 80% of their salary. Okay. In India, you're telling, I understand. I mean, the government also has its limitations, but you're saying everybody, please pay your employees, please take care of them. I can understand large companies who have grown over the years. It's fine. They have some reserves, they can plow it back. But small companies, you're telling them pay, and you're making cash accessible to them by going and borrowing more money. They are already in debt. You're now telling them go and borrow more money to clear your employees and pay them. I think exactly what CKKG said. Everybody is scared. They're scared to go and take more debt because also the future is uncertain. You really don't know how things are going to pan out. Like Pankaj said, if there's a second wave, God forbid, you're going to have huge problem. Having said that, I think the intent is there, but also the stimulus, I think, came a little bit late, and it's still, you're saying if there is more needed, we will do it. Right thing would have been to say, this is what we need to do, and we need to do it now. And you can't think of long term, because in the short term, if people die, long term by giving them oxygen makes no sense. You need to see what needs to be addressed today. And the migrant problem is a really big problem. And that is something that you cannot wish away, because you have been inconsistent in your policies. One day you say, we'll do this. Next day you'll say, no. You'll say, yes, no. I think, there has been clarifications after clarifications after clarifications. And that is going to be a huge challenge, because they have lost trust in you. They have lost trust in the society. Now, to bring them back is going to be a huge challenge. That will also have its impact on the economy. Coming back to our sector, I think the IBF has already made a representation to the government. Also moratorium, when you're giving thing, you're not even waiving off the interest. You are saying, okay, I'll allow you 3 months later to pay your debt, but with full interest. And now you're saying, I'll give you another 3 months, but with full interest. You're only building up the debt of the customer, okay, for which he will have to pay even more. You're saying PF, we have reduced it from whatever percent by 2% or whatever it is, but you're saying dip into your own long-term savings. It's not that the government is giving you a stimulus, it's your government is actually saving money, because the employers don't have to make the employers don't have to make that contribution. But in the hands of the employee, maybe he's getting immediate cash, a little extra in hand, but he's dipping into his long-term savings. So I see that there has not been any thought. It's been all ad hoc. And I think a lot of things that are happening today is still very ad hoc. Maybe the intent is there, but I think they need to, execution is another thing that's going to be
front load the liquidity.
Right. And in fact, Mr. Chopra, let me come to you now. Do you think that, in fact, Mr. Rajnaik also mentioned it, in his own manner, that the stimulus package did lack the broader reform, aspect of it. There was a lack of spark in it, if we can say, and not much was discussed when it came to land, labor reforms, tax rationalization, or any other coherent plan to, in fact, invite foreign manufacturing as well. Do you think that the government will have to, whether it likes it or not, revisit this entire stimulus package sooner than later?
Thanks, Vineet, for that. I think I agree with whatever's been said right now by Pankaj and Raj and Mr. CKK. I agree with them on the entire structure of the package. Let me just shift the discussions, like you asked, CKK, like you asked, Vineet, in terms of what do we do going forward and what needs to be done. I think it's very clear that the government has its own limitations, because we are India and the UK and the United States. The circumstances are different. We don't have the ability to print money like some of these other countries. So we have very different limitations compared to these other countries. Therefore, I think the opportunity, Vineet, just like you highlighted, we need to focus on the following. One is drastic reform to the fundamentals for our country, labor reform, land reform. I think this is the opportunity that we have to really take those bold decisions to make those reforms happen. I think in terms of the fiscal stimulus and monetary stimulus, I think our hands are limited in terms of what the government can do. But I really do believe this is the time to make reform happen, number one. Number two, this is our opportunity to show the world that we can do and make in India as well as anywhere else in the world. I think this is our opportunity to ensure that we attract investment to do more manufacturing in India. If you look around the world, manufacturing supply chain has broken, right? I think large corporations around the world do realize that they have been dependent upon China to a large extent for supply chain. And I think we need to find more flexible ways of changing to manufacturing in terms of nearshoring, in terms of looking at other countries. And I really do believe that India has a great opportunity in that. And just the third point I want to say, Vineet, that in terms of technology, I think, I don't remember who mentioned it, but I think India could become a hub for technology and services for the world. I think this is another opportunity where today, sitting at home, we can provide technology solutions for the world. Let me give you one of our companies, Industry.ai, that provides AI solutions to companies around the world, in manufacturing companies, to improve productivity. About 5 weeks ago, a lot of large corporations came to us and said, is there a way for us to keep our people safe? And is there a way to ensure business continuity? So what we did was come up with a couple of solutions where we made 2 cell phones communicate with each other. So when 2 people come within a certain distance, it vibrates. But not only that, It also provides large corporates an early warning system if one of the employees gets sick, so everybody else can be looked after. We're doing a lot of work on computer vision models so that by connecting any camera anywhere in the world, we can actually train our computer vision models to detect when people are not wearing safety gear, masks, and also to send an alert when social distancing is breached. So those are a couple of examples. I think in terms of reform, 2, this is our time to really kickstart manufacturing for our country, to be an alternative source for supply chain. And 3, I think we have an incredible opportunity, Vineet, to leverage technology to be a world leader and show the world what we can do in India and provide solutions to solve technology problems that exist.
Blossom, you heard other panelists talk about the response to the stimulus package. Tell us, both as an entrepreneur and someone who has retailed their products, and also the supply side, your manufacturing is in Rudrapur. The supply side got impacted, the demand side got impacted. Tell us, how do you see the package and how do you see your business going forward?
Yeah, there is no doubt.
You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Now, for us, everything has been closed. I mean, everything, whether you take the skilling, you take the salons, you take the retail, you take the manufacture, you take the exports, it's just been closed completely. And of course, when it started, it was just, we thought for a little while, but then it went on. And it definitely has impacted us, like CKK was saying, and the rest, and especially CK, that your salaries had to be paid, your rents have to be paid, everything has to be done and kept up with at the same time. So the package really that has come to us is really not helping. And like he was saying, that we have to, even if we go to the banks, they say, oh, we are not very sure, we'll get back to you after a little while, let them just get sure with it. But, again, like everyone has said, that even if you take the loan, you have to again pay that. It's a real difficult situation. You don't know what is going to happen. And like when they are opening it, like, just like that, and then you have all these things, you never know if it's going to come back again and hit us, because COVID, I think, really is going to stay with us for some time till we come up with a vaccine or something. But of course, now with the opening of it, and what we have done is the e-commerce is going, that is great. And even when we have to do our manufacture, one is in a red zone and one is in a green zone. And, it is a little difficult to get the things. But what I feel is that, of course, we will have to go with it because, and like whatever has been done, it has been done. And I don't think you can get anything more. Maybe they'll have to, like we were saying, there has to be more reforms, there has to be more everything that will have to come back. And one thing is that what Mr. Chopra was saying, we have to go into Make in India, because that is something, because now China is not there and we really can take its place. We can really go ahead. We can do it like from us, it is Ayurveda, like we did yoga all over. We go into Ayurveda, we go into our oils, like it's from there, our cosmetics. And another thing is we have to start manufacturing here. We have to start manufacturing the machinery, the other things, and we have to give it that finish. And I'm sure it can be done. And that's where we will have to, really work on. And the other thing is, of course, in the whole industry, our beauty industry, it's not just Kumar, Vela and me. It is the whole industry. I mean, we are a huge, huge industry, and people have lost their jobs because they couldn't pay rents, both the rents, people. It is really sad. And now, of course, they'll have to realize that they can't just specialize in a subject. They'll have to, go ahead and become a jack of all trades so that they can keep on with it. And the other thing that I would like to say is our industry is such that it's a very, very feel and touch industry. It's a very, very close. So even when opening, we are keeping all the sanitation things going, but we have to, and another thing is, yes, sanitation. We can do the sanitation, the big ones can do it. What about the small little salons who are there, who've lost their job. This is livelihood. So they will have to also go with it, and we'll have to find something. The government will definitely have to find something that they can help them to go ahead and start again. You know,
get back on their feet.
Yeah,
you come from though your company has been out now for a while and you raised capital, so we just can't call it a startup. But you represent founders on this panel, and you know the fear is that with the way capital has dried up and also the revenues have dried up, a lot of startups may actually fold up. At least 60% of the startups were looking to raise funding in February, and 99% of them haven't been able to raise till now. So tell us, do you think that the government package addresses that, and what is your overall reaction to the economic stimulus package?
It is a little difficult. Like they've given a simple amount of 5 lakhs for somebody or something, not even that, I think, for certain amount. And it is difficult. I think the startups are going to find it unless the bigger ones, you know, take them in and try to help them.
Sure, also we'll come to you. Naya, your opening comments.
Yeah, so I think just 2 or 3 points. First of all, I think the panelists have covered, I think, the majority. And it's fascinating to sort of hear the different and the diversity of perspectives from different sectors on this panel. I think just from the startup space, at the very outset, right, we were very excited about the stimulus because, of course, as with every other sector and, you know, with the aspiration that we've set for ourselves, be a 1 trillion contributor by 2025 as a startup sort of ecosystem. There's a lot of aspiration, a lot of ambition, a lot of hunger. So we were very excited about the stimulus package. Unfortunately, I think it is a very ambiguous package. It starts from the very definition, right, Anurag? If you look at the definition, that's like, number one, there is no sort of specific carve out for startups by themselves. They're kind of dovetailed within the definition of an MSME. And there's a lot of sort of questions around the definition of MSME today and like which startups, which ventures qualify SMEs, which don't, right? So, and then from there, the host of benefits that come by being an MSME at the very beginning, if the definition is ambiguous, if they carve out for startups, the entire intent of the stimulus package kind of is a question then, right? I mean, you try to understand what do you do about it. The second thing from a startup ecosystem, startups are fundamentally not built to raise debt as a very natural way of doing business. They're very sort of, you know, onerous penalties built in some shareholder agreements for the promoters, etc. So that's not a very natural course of business, right? At the same time, of course, as a stimulus is needed, I think Blossom explained startups or like larger ventures, which have money for the next 5, 10, 15 years, whatever, right? I mean, they can sort of see this entire crisis pyramid, right? The very young, nascent, initial state, seed state startups, right, that are really struggling, keep being pulled back. There are restrictions being put on foreign investments in the country for different reasons, some correctly so, some in question. So there is a big challenge the startup ecosystem is facing. Now, just to specific venture, which is Baby Chakra, you know, we are in a position of, I think, a great privilege because we actually have more than 2.5, 3 million mothers and hence families we get insights into every month, right? And I think we see some very interesting trends. Number one, very, very good note. I think the crisis, as well as, of course, the government really emphasizing behavior change around health, hygiene, nutrition. We're seeing sort of this behavior change percolate down to family for us, but of course, a whole host of new industries and sectors that's behavior change in future. Number two, I think digital, right? I mean, we've been talking about digital transformation like for the longest time, for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, I don't even know.
At least last 5 years.
Last 5 years minimum. And now you sort of see this accelerating. And, you know, we've actually seen some of the highest engagement levels, the highest spikes. Just one caveat though there. You know, again, if you divide digital India into India 1, India 2, India 3, India 2 and 3 is all odds, right? And hence sort of a basic disposable income to get to the internet. With migrant workers losing their jobs, for all of our panelists to think about, will this dream of digital India really flow through? Same ambition and with the same aggression that we'd initially envisioned for it, right? Because I think that piece is still, I think, a blank startup ecosystem to sort of think about as we go through this crisis.
So problems for startups. Mr. Munjal, you know, coming back, you know, the stimulus package and later on the Prime Minister also made a very vehement pitch for Atmanirbharta. How important or how relevant is Atmanirbharta during this?
It's important to the extent that in some time back, we heard that Japanese cars had shrunk by 92% in China. The Chinese had planned to stop buying Japanese products the Chinese, and they shrunk. The Japanese makers were constrained to take decisions what the Chinese government wanted them to. How can we do it in India? We talk of words like we'll take on China. How? It's a wish. It's a dream. Where are the feet? Like CCK was saying, you have to be 30,000 and feet on the ground. Where are the feet on the ground? We can't compete China. I can't compete China this way. I met the previous government and I said,
they have cheaper labor, cheaper land, and cheaper capital.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Chinese banks are lending at 0%, 1%. So how do Indian entrepreneurs compete on price?
Yeah, Anurag. So we don't even know whether we are fighting a corporate or this. We don't know how he is like, how the numbers add up. But the front end ke upar main baat kar raha hu, the Indian, when the whole country says, if I don't buy Indian products, who's going to buy Indian products? Outside India? No. First it starts from us. If we decide that we do not want a country A. Now China is getting a lot of social media bashing. This media, this, whatever you keep reading, so much video floating around. I mean, if there's some truths, we should stop it. India will rise, has to. We're a large buying population. I've just, in the COVID times, the last 2 months, we've removed 1,000 crores worth of imports that we planned from China into India. A German R&D did the designing. You know, they were on, Germany was on. They never had a clampdown, lockdown. They were allowed to go to work and all. And we localized this. So China's easy way out, but it's not the right way out to buy from them. We are giving them cash flows. And those cash flows are used against us. So China, and again, one TP or somebody was mentioning about the migrant labor. I mean, the other part I want to touch is we need to do something about it. We are talking about migrant labor. I've got a big problem in our tier 2 suppliers. They are giving us, the supplier adherence is very, very poor. And they say, we raised up our hands. So we are sending people back Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Orissa, and giving them air freight and all to come back and run the lines. We're giving people in Bihar jobs as tier 2, whatever, sub-dealers. So there's a permanent scar. We have let them down. In our speech, we would say, you are family, we are employee, we are one team. But when the time of test came, it was a letdown. They don't trust us. So we need to fix this in the back end because they themselves, when they're employed, they'll be also. They are the people to buy. They are the people to pay installments on the salaries. So on the front end, China ko agar karna hai, Make in India label is not good enough. We all Indians must participate and take decisive calls to our friends, to our family.
Absolutely.
All right.
Mr.
Okay.
Mittal, I want to ask you.
Right, Anurag, before you go ahead, Anurag, before you go ahead, we have to
the
take a
package?
break. Anurag, hold on to that thought. Hold on to that thought. We have to slip into a mandatory break. We'll take that break. We'll come back and then we'll begin with you, Anurag. Folks, we'll slip into a short break. Anurag, you had a question. Go ahead.
Mr. Munjal, I'd ask you just before the break that what would you have liked to see more in the package from the government? A lot of people have been saying reform, but we need liquidity and it needs to be front-loaded. And you talked about the SME sector and how the role it plays in Indian economy. So tell us, what would you have liked to see? If this is stage 1, part 1, what should be stage 2, part 2, stage 3, part 3?
Anurag, lots talked on liquidity without that's bloodline to keep the body alive. I mean, without that, there's no story. But other than that, I think we need a feel-good spirit. You spend money from your pocket and put it on the table to buy something if you're feeling great and confident. In England, Boris Johnson has gone to the mic and made an announcement, this is what I'm going to do. Our bicycle sales have grown 600%.
Wow.
We can't feed them. Anyway, I'm 56 years. I've never
Really
seen this in my life.
India with UK, Canada, and to all the people who say that the government is not doing enough. In the last 2 weeks, tax refunds are coming back. This week, the banks have started to give out loans and specific cases. But I'll still hear you, Mr. Munjal.
Look, we are no match there now. I mean, TP has also mentioned and Raj Naik also made. We have got checks in our envelopes in England and Germany in April. When the policies were being designed over here, it was execution there. the morale of that guy never went down. He did go and buy. He was a buyer also with that money. To start, if something is declining, to pick up something is very tough. But if something has vanished, to start something, it's impossible. Yeah, I mean, it's a very tough task. We cannot compare, and we can't, and we shouldn't. They are rich countries. They could track, trace, test. They could do all these things. They've got certainty. We have got 9,000 figures today. The curve is rising. What are we talking? We can't see tomorrow. It's foggy. So there you see all the curves have come down to a near zero, and there the plans are rational. They got feet on the ground and they can measure what they're doing. How could we measure something on a rising curve? This has to go, get flattened, come down, and then we do. Will it take 15 days or 2 months? Don't know. Should I call the labor tomorrow or should I not call the labor for next month? Don't know. So we are in a big risk. We need all what they have said is all relevant that way, but we need a sharper, morale. We need a feel-good factor. Hero is planning export-led growth. I think the rich countries are going to bounce back faster. The rich countries have already bounced back faster, and they are into it, and they are pretty much normalcy. It is not normal. They are towards normalcy. India will have a checkered future for some time. But I want to compliment Mrs. Kocher. After all that thing, ma'am, you had a very big smile, very inspiring. That's what I want our Prime Minister also to be doing.
I mean, Mr. Nayak, the services sector is about 66% of the GDP. Even a lot of SME is in the services sector apart from manufacturing and agriculture. Now, the mental health of a lot of people, whether entrepreneurs or employees or micro entrepreneurs, home entrepreneurs, has been impacted. And what Mr. Munjal is saying, the government should spend its way to create a positive sentiment, which then has a multiplier impact. What are your specific suggestions to make sure that the sentiment is revived? You'll have to unmute yourself, Mr. Nayak.
Sorry, what you said is so true, Anurag. The fact is, everybody, whether it's the entrepreneur, whether it's the owner, whether it's the employee, there is fear, there is anxiety, there is apprehension, everything combined together, and mental stress on top of that. And the thing is, people don't know. There's no clear direction. There is contradiction between the state and the centers. I'm not saying who's right or who's wrong. I'm not here to sit in judgment. But there's no clear direction. So people are confused. Even 2 days back, you got a list of, we are going to ban Chinese products in military canteens and things like that. Few hours later, you get a clarification that these are all products made in India. Now, these kind of things, sends extremely wrong messaging to the people. I think first you need to get your messaging right. If you get your messaging right, like Mr. Munjal said, sentiments is a question of messaging. You need to make people feel good. You can't rule by either fear or you can't rule by confusion. So I think that is very important. I think first you need to get the messaging right. And two is what the pandemic has been able to do, like somebody mentioned, has made what CTOs in companies have not been able to do, or what CEOs in companies have not been able to do. One thing that pandemic has done is to get anybody and everybody digital savvy. I know people who are 70-year-old who are today getting digital savvy. Coming back to mental stress, I think that is going to be huge. Organization and companies will have to think. I think the future, first of all, you don't know how companies are going to evolve, whether people will start continuing. I know Google and all have said we will let people work from home and things like that. So that is going to be a different norm. And I think mental stress and these for companies, I think its future is also going to be not how just people think, it's also how people feel. So it is very important for CEOs of the future to be more empathetic. I think transparency, trust, and empathy are going to be three key fundamentals for the future CEOs of organizations.
Thank you, Raj. We'll come back to you.
Mr. Nayak, do you think that the government has...
Talk about technology and the impact of technology.
Anurag, one second.
Yeah.
Mr. Nayak, do you think that the government has been a little hasty in terms of unlocking India as well?
See,
That's $1 billion question.
see, first thing is, to be fair to the Prime Minister, I think the lockdown was a bold and brave decision. Okay, and it had to be done. And I know, whether it's a leader in government or leader in a corporate life, the leaders make decisions. But when you make a decision, not all decisions are perfect. You make, I mean, I think the 4 hours notice period, I think, was a big mistake. But when you make a mistake, the first thing you do is you course correct as you go along. I think that course correction didn't happen. And that's where I think, inconsistency. And then what happens is panic sets in and reactions happen. Then either you dig your heel deeper or you then do some knee-jerk reaction. Opening up the lockdown, I don't know, because it's a catch-22 situation. I really pity anybody who's in power today, whether it is the state or the center, because it's not an easy decision. Either which way, you're in trouble. If you don't open up the economy, people are going to die. If you open up the economy, people are going to die. I think it's a catch-22 situation. I think what is important, and I don't think it's still happening, is implementation of social distancing. Sad thing is, I don't blame the government, I blame the people. The people have still not taken it seriously. You see what happened yesterday in Karnataka. A minister being garlanded with hundreds of people. I mean, when lawmakers break the law, what messaging are you sending to the people? I think.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Vineet, for asking that probably question about, is the lockdown being ended too early? TP, you talked about the power of technology and how India can use that to leverage and hopefully bring the economy back. Specifically about artificial intelligence. We know we missed the bus on Make in India 20 years back. We missed the bus on electronics manufacturing 15 years back. And the government is trying to address all of it. Day before yesterday, the government came up with a 50,000 crore plan for the electronics manufacturing. But do you think that India can be the artificial intelligence capital of the world?
Yeah, good question, Anurag. I think this is our chance to become the artificial intelligence capital of the world. Because at the end of the day, all these tools of technology are tied back closely with industrial innovation, disruption, and that's going to happen in the world of manufacturing right now. So I really do believe that this is our chance as we start disrupting. It is no doubt, Anurag, the world has changed. I think whichever company you're in or whichever industry you're in, you've got to start re-looking at your whole manufacturing process, look at your product range, and figure out what's going to happen next. But specifically with AI, I really do believe this is where the digital transformation is going to come within manufacturing, within production. And like I was sharing with you, how we very quickly and literally in our own personal lives at our company, Industry.ai, how we've adapted our product range in literally the last 5 weeks to provide these solutions to help keep our workforce safe, help our workforce become more productive. And the fun part about it is we've been able to do all this during a lockdown and also provide these solutions not only in India, but to all parts of the world, because it's the same problem that we are facing in India, it's the same problem they're facing in the United States, and the same problem they're facing in Europe as well. So I really do believe that we have a chance. However, let me just add a few challenges on the way. One, we don't have the depth of financial capital to fund the research in a lot of core AI. That's one of the big challenges we have. When I look at the kind of capital that's being pumped into AI research in China and the United States compared to what we have out here, it's very, very little. We have the brains. We have some of the best talent in the world, but we just don't have core research happening. Two, all this research happening in the institutions, the IITs, etc. There is no easy way for industry to collaborate with universities to bring all this technology out and put it out there in the real world that happens in other parts of the world. So I think if there are these two areas that we can help, and the third area being education, if there are ways that this is the time that we can train people in terms of computer vision modeling, in terms of machine learning, in terms of AI, that these are the three things I think we should do to really make us a world leader in AI.
Mr. Chopra, there's a standoff between the United States and China, trade-wise. Do you think this is a perfect window of opportunity for India to step in?
It is a window. I do agree. However, one of the things I do completely agree with my fellow panelists, what Pankaj was saying. It isn't that easy to completely destroy your supply chain overnight, right? And I tell everybody a simple, I wrote an article recently and I called it Economics Trumps Emotion. At the end of the day, CEOs around the world will rely on manufacturing supply chain where it is predictable, where it is cost competitive. That's where they're going to go. So even though, from my perspective, I want Make in India to happen, I want us to create that counterbalance to the concentration that exists for supply chain from China. However, I think we need major reforms to be able to really make us a significant alternative if we can provide the world supply chain in terms of getting to economics and to get predictability in supply chain, then we have a really, really good chance to compete in the world supply chain.
Now, yeah, we keep talking about startups and entrepreneurs, and there's been a counter view that why should we expect so much from the government? Entrepreneurs are always creative. They find a way to prosper and build something valuable. What do you have to say to those people?
Anurag, I think a lot of us here are entrepreneurs. In fact, most of us are entrepreneurial. So I think we will always be optimistic about the future, right? And we will always see the silver lining to all the dark clouds that surround us. I think that's a natural given. And I see Blossom again grinning away. But I think that's just really who we are, right? And I think, what I keep on, we all have entrepreneur groups, right? I'm part of a bunch of them. I am ex-McKinsey. There's a McKinsey cohort of entrepreneurs. There's a business school cohort of entrepreneurs. There's general entrepreneurs in my ecosystem. And I think we're all very excited about what the future can hold. But, a lot of us are struggling today as well. It's not easy. I think some of the panelists mentioned, right? It's not easy when you're laying off your team because you just don't have any revenues coming in for months, right? Or if you're getting term sheets pulled back because, foreign investors are struggling in their own countries, but also within India, the ecosystem for venture capital is not as robust as it, has the potential to be. So I think there's pros and cons to both. Overall, we are optimistic. I think the digital transformation piece is extremely exciting for us. I do think that, of course, startups which are doing more work in like really hardcore retail, manufacturing, logistics, etc., I think they're really struggling, right? And I think that's still an open question on them on how fast can they accelerate and use technology to really cover up for all the I think the absence of labor, the absence of workers, the absence of even team members that they are facing today, and of course the absence of demand. Really, people are struggling.
Yeah.
Blossom, you heard everyone. Now,
Yes.
You've been doing this for a while. Your third generation is in business. Your daughter, your grandson. Now, what have you learned from them in this lockdown? I know you are the founder of the business, but the new generation brings its own new ideas that we can get reverse mentored. We can, rather than mentoring them, we can get reverse mentored. So tell us, what have you learned from them in the lockdown?
From them is technology and AI. That's what they are going into, and they are making the whole company go into now, because that is really what is going to help us. Like in our factory again, in our salons also, we've done somewhat of the same. So it's going to really help. So that is really what they brought in, the technology, and where we are all going into this technology and into AI, into everything, even for the factories, the manufacturing and everything. So in this lockdown, we have been working like that. And of course, e-commerce, because I think that is really now going to be the thing.
Direct to consumer. You go direct to consumer, DTC.
Yeah, so that is that is what has been happening with us.
Mr. Kumaravelu, you also stood for election in the last election. You formed a party, you joined Kamal Hassan's party, and you stood. And I remember the economic manifesto that you shared with me last time I was in Chennai in December. Tell us what, as a policy maker, the government can still do, make sure that the expectation of the entrepreneurs and the business community is met so that they can create jobs and keep the GDP going.
My fellow panelists told one is when we expect the transparency, the accountability, the trust factor, all that is also that of the government. Today, that is, we are looking at like a blank. When we are a child, is to look at our father as the Superman and the mother as the Superwoman. As we grow in age, college and get married, we suddenly realize that they don't have all the answers. It is both intimidating and inspiring. intimidating on one side that they don't have all the answers, inspiring that we can take the life in our hand and we can drive it. As an entrepreneur, I feel that still there is a lot of opportunities, especially the Zoom call, what we are doing at this point of time is a classic example of what digital can do in so many things. Today, a lot of our expenses has come down. We have been not looking at so many things as we are running into the current problem. The current, when it stops, I think we all have opportunity to stop by and look at what is there. We can improve our revenue and things like that. So there are a lot of silver linings in this. But from the government, I will say, please come to the ground and understand the problem of the people. Give us some hope. And that's what I would expect, especially with the migrant problems and the happening in front of our eyes. People are losing hope. I think that's while Prime Minister comes in and speaks very nicely, we all get motivated, we all get inspired. But what follows up there is a large gap. If that gap is existing or if it is widening, the impression and this thing of the Prime Minister himself will be lost. So this thing is there has to be, you have to walk the talk, and that's what I would want the government to do.
Thank you. We want to end the show, but we would like to ask, where videos each of them
one
panel, where would be the Indian economy?
We've run out of time.
From now. We'll start with you, Naya. Where will be the Indian economy in 90 days from now?
Anurag, we have run out of time, so I would request everybody to just be brief in their response.
So 90 days from now is basically, I do think we'll be open. I think that's definitely given. I think the government is focusing on opening up, and I think we've traded off the economic loss to the loss of lives, and we've decided to go with the farmer to manage. I do think that there have been some measures taken, by the way, on the healthcare piece. I mean, if you look at the new MCI guidelines, telemedicine now becoming legal and being accepted by doctors and as well by the government and by the MCI, I think that's a very big step. So I think there are some sectors that are looking to catapult using digital to really grow. So I think that's really where we're going to be. I do think a big question around the migrant labor workforce. I don't see any clarity there yet.
Shorter answer. TP, Indian economy in 90 days.
I think it's going to be a struggle. It's going to get, I call it the swoosh curve. It's going to get much worse before it starts getting better.
Raj Nayak, Indian economy in 90 days from now.
I'm a very optimistic guy in spite of everything. I always look at the silver lining in every cloud. I can only say the truth is I don't know. And I hope that we bounce back faster than we do.
Blossom Kocher, Indian economy in 90 days.
Yes. It's still going to be limping back. They are going back, but we're going at a little slower pace. We'll be limping back. Yeah.
Okay. CKK. Unmute yourself, CKK.
Yeah, few of the industries will do extremely well and many will not.
Okay. Last but not the least, last word from Mr. Pankaj Munjal. We started with you. We end with you.
If we are careful of this phase, which is very, very crucial, we can be back. Some sectors will fly. Every crisis brings in something new. New opportunities are born. So some sectors will be not that good, but some sectors could fly.
Okay, some will perform and some will perish, and that is the nature of the beast as well. And gentlemen, and Naya and Blossom, thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful show.
Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye now and wish everybody all the best.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.